Foolish mortals, ghostly creatures, scurvy pirates and scalawags, welcome your next panel to the stage. Here are Leslie Iwerks, Tori Atencio McCullough, Kelsey McCullough, and Bobby Lucas.
To speak about one of my favorite Imagineers and Disney Legends X Antecio, who you all I know, right? Yeah? Okay. This is X's family, and I'm going to scoot up a little bit here so you can see y'all. You know, this is pretty amazing. You all have written this book that's coming out November 4th, thank you. It's called Xavier X Antecio, The Legacy of an Artist, Imagineer, and Disney Legend. And it will be available exclusively at Destination D23 attendees this weekend at Mickey's of Glendale. So I'm going to introduce you all to these ladies. So Tori Atencio McCullough is X's eldest daughter and the only one of his 4 children who followed in their father's footsteps, having had her own 40-year career at Walt Disney Imagineering in the interior design department. Tori retired in 2016 and later co-authored a book about her Disney career, Women of Walt Disney Imagineering, 12 Women Reflect on Their Trailblazing Theme Park Careers. If you don't have it, go get it. Kelsey McCullough is X's first granddaughter, following the family footsteps. She started her Disney career working in technology for Disney parks in 2013 and has since moved over to working on technology innovation at Walt Disney Studios. Bobby Lucas could most closely be defined as X's grandchild-in-law. She is a writer, producer, and film professor in Los Angeles. In the Atencio family tradition, she spent part of her career at Disney, where she worked in the television department. So, how many years has the Atencio family been at Disney now?
87.
87.
Since 1938, there's been an Atencio working for the Walt Disney.
Oh, is that amazing?
We're trying to get to 100.
Talk about a legacy. Well, let's get started. I just want to hear all about the untold stories. Let's get to know X a little bit more. How did he first get started in art and his career at Disney?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, Leslie. He was raised in a small rural town in Colorado called Walsenburg, and that's where he grew up. He was a self-taught artist. He had no formal training, but he exhibited very strong drawing skills at an early age. Look at this picture he drew when he was 8 years old. Like, really? As he was finishing high school, he was the editor-in-chief of his high school newspaper. And he thought, well, you know, I think maybe I'll go into journalism and follow in my father's footsteps. And so he applied to journalism school.
And lucky for all of us, he wasn't accepted. And so he had to figure out pretty quickly what his plan B was going to be. And he had a little bit of a knack for art, and he figured if I can't write for the papers, maybe I could at least draw cartoons for them. And so he applied to art school. There were no art schools in Colorado, so he applied to Chouinard in California, where he had some family, and he moved to Los Angeles. And in 1938, he enrolled at Chouinard for his first semester of art school, and he enrolled in a pre-animation class. And at the time, Chouinard had a very close relationship with Disney, and so for their final assignment, the professor told the class to submit a portfolio, and they would send it to Disney and get feedback for the students from real animators. And X was a self-described procrastinator, so he put it off until the last minute, but ultimately, he submitted his portfolio, and this is just a sample of what he submitted. It was a 12-drawing story about a cowboy named Pacheco who was entering a horseshoe throwing competition. And unbeknownst to him, Disney was actually looking to hire a new class of animators. This was coming off the success of Snow White. They were working on Pinocchio, and so they were looking through these portfolios actually to recruit some new talent. And through a series of coincidences, he actually ended up at the Hyperion studio talking to the hiring manager there, who said to him, "Hey, we've looked through your stuff and like what you've got. How'd you like to come work for us?" And as he would always tell the story, you know, he jumped out of his seat and yelled, "Holy Toledo, would I ever!" And he ran the 3 miles home back to his house in Hollywood yelling, "I got a job at Disney, I got a job at Disney." And after 1 semester, that was the end of art school for him and the start of a 46-year career.
Amazing. Well, so once he started at the studio, what projects did he get into next?
Yeah, so he started on Pinocchio at the theater under Goldie Riderman. They were working on Monstro the Whale. And then from there, he went to work still under Goldie Riderman. Can you hear me now? Okay, there we go. The slouching blazer. Still, he went to work after Pinocchio with Wooly Reitherman. He continued on under Wooly as an assistant animator on Fantasia in the Rite of Spring segment. Okay, now I have 2 mics. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, great. And then I'll just hold it. And then continued on working on Dumbo until the animator strike of 1941. And when that ended, he was excited to get back to work, but
Try the mic.
switching mics.
There you go.
And so the world had other plans. He got a call from Uncle Sam for the military draft for World War II, and he left Disney and his life behind shortly after his 21st birthday.
And he was away in the war for 4 years, actually, and there's a lot of really fascinating stories there. He was part of a top secret aerial intelligence group, but unfortunately that could be a whole nother panel in itself. I don't know that we have time for it.
It's a documentary in and of itself. It's 4 years away.
Yeah, it's amazing, but it's all in the book.
Yeah, it's all in the book, so you can check it out.
Yeah.
So, well, after 4 years, he comes back to the studio. Tell me what happened next.
Yeah, so he was very happy to come back, of course. He was lucky to be able to come back, but the world had changed a lot during that time, and the studio had changed. And so he came back to a different place than where he left, and he saw, other animators around him who hadn't been drafted. Their careers had progressed. They had become full animators, and he was still an assistant. And during that time, he was doing a lot of the cleanup work for the Goofy shorts. So he would ensure the consistency of the character across the whole film, and at that time he would like to say he knew the Goof better than anybody. And but eventually more doors did begin to open for him. Ward Kimball was interested in kind of playing around with this new, more modern animation style. And he pitched it to Walt, who was a little bit skeptical. But Walt said, you can go ahead with it with the caveat that he couldn't pull any of the feature animators off the film. So he said, go to the assistants if you want to find people to work on it with you. And Ward knew that X drew what he called these pointy nose characters in his personal work. And these are, cards that he would draw for his wife. And that pointy nose look was a bit more in line with that modern aesthetic. And so Ward recruited him to join him on these films, and the pointy nose characters were kind of in contrast to what X liked to call Disney's Fat Bunny style at the time. And so they worked together on 2 short films to start, Melody and To Whistle, Plunk and Boom. And as you can see, this is a very different look for Disney. It was much more experimental. They were trying a lot of different things, and it gave X really a chance to kind of show off his broader artistic range, his design sensibilities, and be a little bit of a bigger fish in a smaller pond at that time. It started to give him a little bit more visibility with Walt, and it also marked a couple major milestones for him. It was his first screen credit after almost 15 years at the studio. He finally got his name in the credits. But it also won an Academy Award, To Whistle, Plunk and Boom, for Best Short Subject for Cartoons. And it was the first Academy Award for Disney in over a decade. And funny enough, X actually never saw the Oscar statue until many years later. When D23 came to his home for an interview, they brought the statue with them and took this picture, which is really nice.
Actually, it was many decades later, not many years later. Okay, next slide. So, television opened up opportunities at the studio, including the start of the Disneyland TV show. And the studio needed now to produce as much film in 1 week as they did in 1 year previously. So this gave people a lot of new opportunities. And at the time, Walt promoted Bill Justice to a cartoon director. And Bill, in turn, asked X to be his right-hand man. So it was really great because they started working on small projects, kind of experimental, and their job was to keep the Disney quality, but keep the cost down. So that so most people don't know that they actually created the credits or the title sequence for the Mickey Mouse Club. And that's the most seen film at the studio in history. So that's quite an accomplishment.
I mean, we all know that title sequence, right? Well, I didn't know, I didn't know all that. And what else would you say we would be surprised by with X?
One of my favorites is stop motion animation. A lot of people actually don't know that Disney did much stop motion animation, but X and Bill were continuing to try and find new experimental ways of making content, and they thought stop motion might be an interesting way to make an interesting look and make things quickly, and Walt was supportive of it. And so the first film that they did together was Noah's Ark. It was a short film. And then from there went on to do the title sequences for Shaggy Dog and for The Parent Trap.
And then at that time, the focus of the studio was really shifting to live action. Walt saw potential for what they had done with the stop motion in animation and also for those title sequences to be great special effects in those live action films. So in 1959, Walt sent Bill and X a memo saying that there was a sequence in Babes in Toyland that needed puppet style animation. And that was the March of the Toys. X and Bill took what they had worked on in these other forms and really iterated and made and designed many of the toys. X himself was most proud of the toy soldiers, and a little subtle Easter egg is that he made the straps in the form of a giant X across their chest and back.
So another fun fact is that he loved his toy soldiers all through his life, and so he loved watching them in the Christmas Fantasy Parade every Christmas morning. So the same stop motion animation that they used in Babes in Toyland was used in Mary Poppins, and so they were responsible for this nursery scene that you see here. As you can see, they had to do some very creative visual effects to get those toys to go back into the toy chest. And so what they did was they filmed it and then ran it backwards. And then the same, So X was responsible for animating the bird that Mary held on her hand. And that was the same technology that they were using to do the audio animatronics of birds in the Tiki Room. And at the same time, X was working on those birds. So he realized that after working on that he had no patience for animatronics. It was his least favorite assignment he ever had. But the good thing is that he got this great picture in National Geographic because of it. So.
As luck would have it, you could see in Nat Geo.
Yeah.
Well, what finally did bring X to Walt Disney Imagineering, or WIT at the time?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. The last thing that he was working on at the studio was a short film that was based on doodles that Walt would do during meetings. And he was really having a hard time kind of figuring out what the story was. And they were going into their third meeting with Walt about it, and X was never one to mince words, and so very quickly he admitted, he said, well, I don't think we know what the hell we're doing here. And as he told the story, Walt very slowly kind of raised one eyebrow and stood up and reached across the table to shake his hand, and he said, I always appreciate an honest man, and I think now's the time to scrap the whole thing. So they leave it there, and the next day he gets a call to come to Walt's office. And he gets to Walt's office, and Walt says, I'd like to send you over to WED. So he's kind of thinking maybe he's being punished for not being able to figure out this doodle short. And it doesn't help that once he gets over there, he has no idea what he's supposed to be doing, and neither does anybody else. So he found an old friend, Claude Coates, a pal of his from the studio, and he stuck by Claude, and Claude was working on Primeval World at the time. And so X decided to help him out on that, and in a real full circle moment, Primeval World was inspired by the Rite of Spring segment from Fantasia that he had worked on early in his animation career.
Well, I know the topic of the discussion is the untold story of X Atencio, but we have to talk about one of his most well-known works, Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, right? So let's hear that story.
Yeah. Well, so after a month and a half of that existential crisis of what am I doing here, Walt asked X to create a story and script around Mark Davis's drawings for Pirates of the Caribbean. X's response to Walt was that he wasn't a writer, but Walt said, I think you can do it. In retrospect, Walt's faith in him wasn't unfounded, given X's early interest in writing, as Tori mentioned, and everything else he had done along the way. He wrote a lot of Christmas cards that are in the book, a lot of Christmas letters.
Oh, I don't know what that slide is. Sorry.
Oh.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
So now I see the slide. so this story that most everybody knows is that X is the one who suggested there be a song in Pirates. But what most people don't know is that when he pitched that idea to Walt, he already had the tune in his head. And when he suggested it, he said, Walt, I think we need a song to pull this all together. And it could go something like, yo-ho, a pirate's life for me. And with that, Walt said, great, go see George Bruns, who was the music director at the studio, and he can write the score. And with that, he became a lyricist.
Amazing. Well, I've also heard that X's voice is the skull above the waterfall at Disneyland. Is that right?
That
was new to me.
That is right, yes. And he, into old age, anytime someone would ask, can you do the pirate voice? Can you do the pirate voice? He would always do, avast there, mateys. But there's an interesting story with that because it was really a last-minute ad. They had brought in all the voice actors, they had finished all of the recordings and sent them home, and then the Imagineers realized that they needed some sort of safety spiel above the waterfall to tell people to keep their arms, hands and arms in the vehicle. And so it was going to be very expensive to bring all of the actors back in, and so X figured, I'll give it a go, and with some clever sound engineering, everyone was so happy with the final result that they put it in, and most people don't realize that it wasn't always part of the original design.
So cool. Well, what else do we not know about X?
Gotta go back to
Okay, so now we got to move on to the Haunted Mansion,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Yes.
so tell us about that story. How did he segue over to that?
Well, one thing for me in writing the book that I was shocked to learn is that X almost didn't work on the Haunted Mansion at all. A few months after the opening of Pirates of the Caribbean, and over 2 years before the opening of the Haunted Mansion, X and his wife went to Disneyland for a date night so that he could check on the audio at Pirates, as one does. And he was just shy of 50 years old, and while he was there, he had serious chest pain and suffered a very serious heart attack. And his father had died at 55 of a heart attack, so this was really his wake-up call. He made some major changes. Step 1, stop smoking. Step 2, he integrated daily exercise into his life and ultimately kept it up and lived to be 98 years old.
So one of my favorite stories is that my sister and I actually had a huge contribution to the Haunted Mansion. And that is, by this time we knew that what Dad was working on, we had a clue now. And so we went to a friend's house and we watched The Haunting on TV. And we were terrified. It was so scary. So we came home and we said, Dad, you have got to watch this movie. It is so scary. And so somehow, he went out and he rented the movie. I don't know how you did that in the 60s, but he did. He rented the movie and he got a screening room at the studio and he showed it to his colleagues. And because of the inspiration of that movie, there's the breathing doors, the wallpaper with eyes in it, and the Gothic architecture that made it into the attraction at the end. So I feel very proud of that.
So at this point, did he pivot straight from becoming from an artist to a writer?
So for Pirates, he really was assigned to being a writer. And then as we talked about, he kind of stumbled into the song lyrics and the voice acting. But, after Pirates, he was really involved in the ideation of these attractions from the beginning. And so he kind of brushed off his art supplies and he did a lot of concept art for attractions like Adventures Through Inner Space, and doing some kind of really different, more like abstract, experimental styles. A lot of concept art for the Haunted Mansion, both for California and for Disney World. They're all coming in.
Come on, PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Come on, Keynote.
But they're really fun stuff. Yeah, and for the Mexico Pavilion as well, and many more attractions. But what's really interesting is that at this point in his career, he's really wearing all of these hats. He's doing concept art, he's doing attraction scripting, song lyric writing, he's directing voice talent, he's doing character design. So that whole kind of like squiggly, past in his career really all came together at this point at Imagineering, and he was the first permanent Imagineer to be both a writer and an artist at WEG simultaneously.
What would we be most surprised with about his work at Walt Disney World?
Most people don't know that he did the final design of Figment. Yeah, this is the Figment crowd. Tony Baxter had come up with the name and the idea for Figment for the Journey into Imagination Pavilion, but the concept itself was wide open for interpretation. Steve Kirk did the initial drawings, and then he handed it over to X to make him cute and lovable, one of X's specialties. And so we have X to thank for the cute and lovable Figment that we all enjoyed today.
Did X go on to work on Epcot after that?
Oh, you mean after Epcot?
After Epcot.
After Epcot?
What did he do after Epcot?
No, he didn't. He was working on Epcot and Tokyo Disneyland simultaneously. And so when those two parks opened up, he said, I'm 65 and I think it's time to go. It's time to retire. And so he had great faith in the talent that he had mentored through the years, and he knew he was leaving the place in a fine place. So he retired.
Yeah, And he liked to say, you know, it was his time to go because he was bullish on the future of the company. He was confident in that next generation of talent that he had mentored, and I think it's fair to say that bet paid off. He was amazed to see in his lifetime how the company continued to evolve after his time there, but I think he would be amazed to see all the people in this room today and all of the exciting things coming in the future. So thank you so much for having us and for letting us share his story with you. Thank you.
Well, you don't want to miss the book signing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mickey's of Glendale, is that right?
10
Yeah,
o'clock.
Mickey's of Glendale, 10 o'clock.
Okay, anything else you want to say about the book?
We hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. We learned a lot along the way, so I'm sure there's something in there new for everyone. But yeah, we've included a lot of his personal artwork, as you've gotten some glimpses of today. And so we're just really happy to share his story with everyone. Thank you so much.
It's a beautiful book, so you just cannot miss it. So I hope you guys get to see it tomorrow. Pick up a copy. Thank you.
Yeah.